that he doesn't even want to call it that. Verse 33, when you come together to eat, wait for one another. Verse 34, if anyone is hungry, let him eat at home, so that when you come together, it will not be for judgment. In other words, they were so debasing the Lord's Supper by the way they were mixing it up with their regular supper, that some had lots to eat and some had nothing to eat. The rich were bringing their big picnic baskets, evidently, and the poor brought nothing, and they were going before each other. It didn't look like love at all. And here, in this context, they're going to do Lord's Supper. Paul's really upset about this, and he says, don't you have houses? Eat at home. Then come and do this. That's the gist of the chapter. Come together as church. So that's why we do it the way we do it. I would not encourage you to regularly do this in small groups. If I heard that it happened on some special occasion, I wouldn't do church discipline. I would just say, I think we need to have a normative way of gathering. There are all kinds of blurry lines here, and so I'm not going to get bent out of shape by periodic exceptions. Just let's make this the norm, since it seems like that was the stress in chapter 11. Number 3, the physical action of the Lord's Supper. The physical action of the Lord's Supper is not a 7-course meal. It's a 2-course meal, and it's really simple. You may wonder, why do you call this a meal? There's a little chip of bread and a tiny, tiny little cup, and you call it a supper. It's because Paul wanted us to split off our big meal, by which we eat enough to satisfy ourselves physically and do serious spiritual business, with some emblems by which we satisfy ourselves spiritually. That was physical. This is spiritual. Verse 23, he took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, this is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me. In the same way, he took the cup after supper, saying, this cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it. So we have eating and drinking. Those are the physical actions of the Lord's Supper. Eating some bread and drinking from this cup. I don't find anything in the Bible that specifies what kind of bread, how big the piece of bread should be, whether it should be a loaf of bread. I don't think there's any command that you use one kind of bread over another kind, or that it look a certain way. I just think there's lots of freedom about that. With regard to what's in the cup, there is one hint, and only one. It's in every one of the 3 first Gospels. Matthew 26:29 would be what's in all 3 of them. I tell you, I will not drink again of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new in my Father's kingdom. That's all we have. That's all we have. It's not called grape juice, and it's not called wine. It's called fruit of the vine, and it's not commanded that it be wine or that it be grape juice. And so, again, I want us and other churches to feel freedom here. I don't find anything in the Bible that either commands or forbids wine or grape juice. And so you just make a judgment call as to what would be appropriate for your situation. And I just don't think we should spend a lot of time thinking or worrying about that. I do think we should spend a little bit of time thinking and worrying about cavalier, playful experimentation with the Lord's Supper, like bagels and Coke around a campfire. I think the Lord's Supper is not a plaything, and that there should be a kind of weightiness about it and seriousness about it that I'll get to in a moment. So I wouldn't encourage that kind of silly, playful experimentation. One other little practical thing: how frequently should a church do the Lord's Supper? I don't see anything in the New Testament that mandates quarterly, monthly, weekly, or every time you get together. it says, as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, do it in remembrance of me. I wonder if the Lord didn't arrange for that, and God, in inspiring the Bible, didn't arrange for that precisely so that there could be some flexibility. It seems to me that I grew up in a church where they celebrated the Lord's Supper quarterly, and I know that many churches do it weekly, and there's some who mix it up. And it seems to me the questions would be something like this that you'd ask to settle that question. One, what frequency or infrequency? We do it monthly, by the way. It's usually on the first Sunday or Saturday of the month. This time, because of last week's service, it was moved. And then we have Monday night, Monday, Thursday, and things like that thrown in. But I think the questions would go something like this. What frequency and infrequency corresponds to the proper importance in relationship to the ministry of the Word? Or, second question, what frequency or infrequency helps us feel its value rather than becoming callous to it? Now, those are not easy judgments, and I do not condemn churches for doing it differently from us. I don't claim to have the perfect way. It's just the way we do it for now, and if we were to change, it would be fine to change for me. I wouldn't want to do it any less frequently. I think that would probably go the wrong direction. I'm very happy with the way we do it. If there would be moved to do it otherwise, I would be listening and praying with you. Those are the kinds of judgment calls that I think are left to a church's wisdom. Number 4, the mental action. We're moving closer and closer to the center of what this is about. The mental action of the Lord's Supper. The mental action is foundationally remembering. Physically, it's eating. Mentally, it's remembering. Verse 24 and 25 in chapter 11 of 1 Corinthians says, do this in remembrance of me. So I take that to mean that as you eat, your mind should not go into neutral. You should not be dreaming, channeling, listening, coasting. You should be directing your mind back in history to Jesus Christ incarnate, crucified, on a cross, rising, triumphant. In other words, the events surrounding Good Friday and Easter is where your minds are going during communion. Do this remembering. Remembering. This is not a passive activity waiting for something to fill your brain. You are consciously moving your brain towards reality, namely historical reality in Jesus Christ. It's amazing, isn't it? The stark reminder. This is why one of the reasons the Lord did this. The stark reminder, time after time as we gather at this table, this is history. Blood, skin that bleeds, body that gets nails run through it and sword and spear run into it. This is history. This is not spirituality. This is not New Ageism. We're not kind of massaging each other's religiosity here to see if we can get in touch with some reality inside. It has nothing to do with what grips America in terms of spirituality and religion. This is an outrageous claim that God became a Jewish man, condemned under Pontius Pilate, ripped to shreds on a cross. 3 days later, rose as the Lord of the universe. Watches us do this here tonight. Fills us with His Spirit. These are realities. They're not, if you didn't believe them, they'd be true as ever. And so there's a mental action, and it's mainly, I'm going back to what happened for me. Because my life hangs on that moment in history when Jesus died for me. Fifth, the spiritual action, and here we're at the all-important act.